Join Revolution Radio every Wednesday, 8 p.m. Eastern Time on Studio B for Momentary Zen with host Zen Garcia at freedomslips.com, the People Station.
Are you a fan of rock and roll? Does it get your feet tapping and your hands clapping? Then be sure to check out Crypt Rick's Rock and Roll Hour every Friday night, 7 to 8 p.m. Eastern and Standard Time on Studio B right here at revolutionradio.com, where we get down and talk all things rock.
This is the people's war. It is our war. We are the fighters. Fight it then. Fight it with all that is in us. And may God defend the right.
Warning! Warning!
We've got to stop them! They're going to kill us all!
See how the trouble you've started?
Be they the government, be they industry, be they organized labor, be they anyone, or human beings. Time when the operation of the machine becomes so odious, makes you so sick at heart that you can't take part. You can't even passively take part. And you've got to put your bodies upon the gears and upon the wheels, upon the levers, by all the apparatus. That's the way to go running, go on it, unless the machine will be working at all.
Radio at freedomslips.com, the #1 listener-supported talk radio station, throwing ourselves upon the gears of the machine. Revolution Radio, where information never sleeps.
You calm down the thunder, well now you got it. Right, you tell them I'm coming, and hell's coming with me, you hear? Hell's coming with me.
Revolution Radio.
Tune into Revolution Rango, Studio A for Omnium Gatherum, a kaleidoscope of discussion, Thursdays at 4 p.m. and Saturdays at 10 p.m. only at Revolution Radio. Tune into Revolution Radio, Studio A for Omnium Gatherum, a kaleidoscope of discussion, Thursdays at 4 p.m. and Saturdays at 10 p.m. only at Revolution Radio.
The spice expands consciousness. The spice is vital to space travel. Travel without boundaries.
1 And greetings, Earth Explorers. Welcome to X Squared Radio. I'm your host, Brooks Agnew, coming to you live from an undisclosed location east of the Appalachian Mountains. This is where the past meets the future, and in here, the results are always positive. Now, we might go a little past your imagination, but have no fear. You will be safely traveling with us as we endeavor to treat, cure, and prevent the disease of ignorance. This is the voice of the revolution. And we are streaming to you live with our good friends at Revolution Radio. We're also streaming to you live on several video platforms on Rumble and YouTube and Twitch, X, DLive, Foxhole, and Truth Refugee, everywhere that good free podcasting can be found live. And if you missed any of the program, it's archived everywhere, easy to find. Wow, the chat rooms are so full already on a Wednesday night. Stanley Mays is here, JCW, Tatanka Dave, 86 Troll, Ammon T223, Old Lace, Mark Hovsepian is here, Dave's Waffle House. All right. I like Waffle House. I eat there all the time. That's great. East Coast 20s here. Who else we got new here? Is it Boo 3413? Oh, you like my Boba Fett candy dispenser? It's not a bobblehead; it's a candy dispenser. Yeah, I have the whole collection. The whole collection. Bosk Burning is here. Let's see here. Duck Goer is here. That's a new one from Twitch. Very good. I'm glad you guys showed up. Who is that? Oh, Ann Coates is here, right? Washaki Wind is here. So now we can get started. Oh, Karen Draper is here. That's good too. And Radio Kiddo. How could we go without Radio Kiddo? We cannot. Let me check Foxhole really quickly. It's connected, but no one's home. A little bit skinny on Foxhole tonight. We'll check back. We'll check back later. No problem. Wow. We have so much to cover tonight, so many different stories about so many different things. But I want to open with what went on today, the state-sponsored terrorism in Minnesota. I'll open with this statement. Today, ICE officers in Minneapolis were conducting targeted operations when rioters began blocking ICE officers, and one of these violent rioters weaponized her vehicle, attempting to run over our law enforcement officers in an attempt to kill them, an act of domestic terrorism. Of course, there are a lot of different opinions about this, but one of the nice things that we have are lots and lots of videos. People had their phones playing, just waiting for an opportunity like this. So, Homeland Security also noted an ICE officer fearing for his life, the lives of his fellow law enforcement, and the safety of the public, fired two defensive shots. He used his training and saved his own life and that of his fellow officers. The alleged perpetrator was hit and is deceased. I don't know how many of you, under pressure like that, with a full throttle vehicle heading toward you, could draw and fire just two shots and stop that driver. I would panic. I would shoot so many holes in that car and probably none of them would hit the driver. But that's training. That is training. The woman ran over an agent's foot. You didn't see that in the video. Barely missing a lethal collision. It is a phenomenal act of self-control. The agent only fired 2 rounds, one of which was fatal. One of the local TV stations noted that The shooting drew a large crowd of protesters afterward, upwards of about 400, and law enforcement to the area. Finally, law enforcement showed up. Law enforcement was ordered to stand down and let ICE fend for themselves, which caused the escalation. If you saw the video prior to the shooting, it just kept ratcheting up and ratcheting up and ratcheting up, and the ICE agents told them to back off, to get away, and they refused to do that. So they pepper sprayed them, they pepper uh, bullet rounds at them, and finally this woman just tried to run the guy over. And he responded by saying, "It's not going to happen today. You're not going to hurt me, and you're not going to hurt my fellow officers." By the way, the 47-year-old mom's death is due to rage incited by public rhetoric from the mayor of Minneapolis and the governor, Tim Walz. ICE officers were reportedly hurt, but not expected to make, or are expected to make full recoveries. Let's see. Reports are that there's been a 1,300% increase in assaults on ICE agents. DHS reported in November that since January 20th, there have been 99 car ramming attacks against federal law enforcement. So in barely 1 year, 99 car ramming attacks. So they've been trained, they've been warned, they are not unaware that people will try to use their vehicles to kill them. In November, illegal alien Ever Gabriel Atvarez Campos was charged after allegedly intentionally ramming his car into an ICE vehicle and then fleeing the scene. In a separate incident in Chicago, Border Patrol faced 4 different vehicular ramming attacks in just 1 day. So there's evidently some training going on the terror side as well. In September, an anti-ICE shooter opened fire on an ICE transportation vehicle in Dallas, fatally striking 1 detainee while injuring 2 others. I guess they were aiming for the officers and hit the detainees instead. You remember that. Rounds found near the perpetrator were inscribed with anti-ICE. Just 2 months prior, alleged members of Antifa attacked the Prairie Land Detention Center in Alvarado, Texas. The facility was housing illegal aliens ahead of their deportation. The attackers began by shooting fireworks toward the facility and vandalizing vehicles and a guard shed. So it's been going on for quite some time. Today's attack was against federal law enforcement, and it was the direct consequence of constant attacks and demonization of our officers by sanctuary politicians who fuel and encourage rampant assaults on our law enforcement. You saw the results of it today. We had 1 fatality. And then you had those same leaders, the mayor and the governor, after not seeing hardly any of the evidence, just 1 video, came out and made completely irresponsible and inflammatory statements and tried to start another George Floyd riot. It didn't get that far. They're mad about it, but it's not going to get that far. And that's, by the way, when law enforcement showed up. As I said, law enforcement was told to stand down and not assist the ICE agents. And that is precisely why the situation escalated as high as it did. If the cops had shown up, if the sheriffs had shown up to the 911 calls, many calls that went to them, none of this would have happened, and that 47-year-old mom would have gotten to go home. Not going to happen now. Yeah, that's a good question, Mark. Who is going to stop him? That's a good question. I don't know. I don't know, because I have another story tonight that's going to blow your mind as a response to this even more. So, I don't know how many of you that listen to this program are millennials. Probably not many. because the millennials don't feel the way that I do on many things. But one of the things that we are in common with is the inability to purchase a home. Now they blame us. They blame the boomers for, eating up everything and leaving them nothing but table scraps. Now it takes 2 to 3 incomes to be able to buy a home, but that's not our fault. Since the Obama crash of 2008, I don't know if you were there, but I was there. Institutions have been buying up hundreds of thousands of homes, cash. And this serves as an equity bank against which they borrow untold billions, avoiding taxes on the money. This also has made it practically impossible for millennials to find a home at a decent price. I'm sure you've heard the complaints yourself. So today, Trump wrote in a Truth Social post that he would be taking action to prevent corporations from buying single-family American homes, a growing trend that researchers have said has been a drag for first-time homebuyers' neighborhoods and quality of life. We have whole subdivisions here in North Carolina, brand new homes being built from the ground up, but you can't buy any of them. They're all rentals, entire subdivisions full of rental houses. $2,000 a month for these houses. Trump said Congress ought to codify the ban into law so that a new administration cannot open the door for investors to buy single-family homes in the future. For a very long time, he said, buying and owning a home was considered the pinnacle of the American dream. It was the reward for working hard, doing the right thing. But now, because of the record high inflation caused by Joe Biden and the Democrats in Congress, that American dream is increasingly out of reach for far too many people, especially younger Americans. It is for that reason and much more that I am immediately taking steps to ban large institutional investors from buying more single-family homes, and I will be calling on Congress to codify it. People live in homes, not corporations. I will discuss this topic, including further housing and affordability proposals and more, at my speech in Davos in 2 weeks. The latest numbers show that investors purchased more than 345,000 U.S. homes in just 3 months. 3 months last year. No wonder you couldn't find a home to buy. No wonder they weren't on the market more than 5 minutes at a time, because the institutional investors would move in and buy them. The latest numbers show that investors purchased way more, about 33% of all homes purchased that quarter. So not only did they buy 345,000 homes, it was about 33% of all homes for sale during that 3-month period. So most recently, real estate data showed that in areas hit by wildfires last year in Los Angeles County, investors are buying up about 40% of those properties as homeowners are unable either to afford to rebuild their houses or they can't get permits. So they're just have no choice but to sell their property. Researchers at the University of Colorado Boulder's Leeds School of Business reviewed real estate data and neighborhood records from Mecklenburg County, North Carolina. That's like right over there, right? It's right over there. Where institutional investors bought up almost 7% of single-family homes sold in the county from 2011 to 2021. I know this because I competed against them. And I finally had to buy a piece of property and build my own house. It was the only way to get a house. We shopped for 2 years, and so did they. They shopped for the same houses I was shopping for. And every single time they outbid me or beat me to the punch and got the house before I could make a deal. So I said, okay, fine. I'll build my own house. And I did. And we're sitting in it right now. You're seeing the results of it. When institutional investors start purchasing at this scale, private people, single family buyers cannot compete against that. And the effects really start to compound, it leads to broader declines in these neighborhoods as these areas grow and become more concentrated with investor-owned properties, which are then rented out, and rental people are not the same as owners. They treat the properties differently. It is not surprising that the character of the community changes. When people are constantly moving in and out because they're renters, it's hard to expect anyone to truly invest in that long-term well-being of the neighborhood. So that's what's going on in the housing market. Yes, Vice President Vance is right in that all of the illegals in this country who have bought homes cash or put a large amount of cash down on those homes because they work for cash, that takes a lot of homes off the market too. And obviously, if you take 15 million homeowning illegals out of or renting illegals out of the country, it frees up more property. Obviously, if those properties are vacant, what's going to happen is the investors are going to sell those properties. And it's the private homeowner who's looking for a new home or another home to move into, a move up or a sideways move or a relocation. They're going to be able to find that house because then it'll be available and on the market. Right, right. That's right, JCW, especially when you see your new neighbors. Old Lace says private equity is buying up everything. It is, but you have to understand why they're doing that. It's not just because the houses are going up at 12% per year. It's because they need a place to put their money. They're not going to just leave it in the bank because the bank could go under. The bank is not going to pay much interest. The bank is a risky place to keep your money. So what they do is they buy single family homes as a place to store their money. They don't have to pay any taxes on it until they sell that house. Then there's some capital gains to worry about. But as long as they own that house, their money is safe because it's not in gold, it's not in silver, it's not in something volatile like stocks. It's in real estate. And that's where they're storing their money. Now, of course, as the value of the home goes up, they're able to leverage or borrow more money to do more business. And they don't have to pay taxes on that money. You don't pay taxes on borrowed money, you only pay taxes on profit. So if they buy a house for $100,000 that appreciates to $200,000, they can then borrow against $200,000 house instead of a $100,000 house. And believe me, they do. And they use the money to buy more property. And then they rent that house out for $2,000 a month, and it easily makes that $200,000 mortgage payment. Now you see how it works. And the problem is that the bigger the institutional buyers get, the more they can buy. And the more they buy, the bigger they get. It's almost impossible to stop it unless the president steps in and says, okay, that's it. No more single family homes can be bought by large institutional investors. Oops, that takes a lot of money off the table. Now, these real estate agents and brokers don't walk over to BlackRock and say, hey, I've got 16 homes you might want to buy. Now they have to sell them to individual families. Price is going to come down. It's going to get more competitive. We win, they win. That's how it works. All right. So let's talk a little bit about food because, man, there's been a hell of a battle going on in Washington, let me tell you. White House health officials announced today a reformed dietary guideline for Americans through 2030. And it's not what you think. You know, we've been taught about the food pyramid since what? You were in the third grade, right? Eat one of these basic food groups, the four basic food groups, which are tacos, pizza, chocolate, and any form of potato, right? Those are the four basic food groups. I'm kidding. That's according to the Boy Scouts. It's something else. This food pyramid is much more healthy and it's upside down. It promotes a diet rich in protein, dairy, healthy fats, fruits, vegetables, and whole grains. And you can see that the pyramid is upside down because it used to be, you had to eat grains first, right? Put out by the American Grain Council. Department of Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy, Agriculture Secretary Brooke Rollins, she's the one that's cut off all the SNAP payments to illegals. Food and Drug Administration Chief Dr. Marty Makary, Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services Director Dr. Oz, and the Department of Agriculture's National Advisor for Nutrition, Health, and Housing, who we know as Dr. Ben Carson, right? Unveiled the guidelines at a White House press conference today, late in the morning. Kennedy said in his remarks that the updated food pyramid is upside down compared to the old one. Today marks a decisive change in federal nutrition policy, made possible by President Trump's leadership and the work of MAHA moms and public health advocates who demanded reform. Kids are getting fat, they're getting sick, and they're showing chronic disease, which is caused by the way we have been eating for the last 20 years. And these guidelines replace corporate-driven assumptions with common sense goals and gold standard scientific integrity. These new guidelines will revolutionize our nation's food culture and make America healthy again. Mr. Kennedy took aim at food-like substances like margarine and other things like that, food coloring. And so the government has long been misleading the American people about diet to protect the corporate profit taking, right? So for decades, literally decades, Americans have grown sicker while healthcare costs have soared. It's not because of our environment, it's because of our food. The reason is clear. The hard truth is that our government has been lying to us to protect corporate profit taking, telling us that these food-like substances were beneficial to public health, getting rid of polyunsaturated fats and getting rid of sugar. And so aspardeath and stuff like that was commonly used in lots of different things. Federal policy promoted and subsidized highly processed foods and refined carbohydrates and turned a blind eye to the disastrous consequences. Things like corn syrup and fructose and stuff like that. Tastes great, but not good for you. Today, the lies stop, they said, and new guidelines recognize that whole, nutrient-dense food is the most effective path to better health and lower healthcare costs. Rollins emphasized that the reformed guidelines encourage households and schools to prioritize whole, nutrient-dense foods. That means more protein, more dairy. That means meat, by the way, meat. More healthy fats, more whole grains, more fruits and vegetables, whether they are fresh, frozen, canned, or dried. We are finally putting real food back at the center of the American diet, real food that nourishes the body, restores health, fuels energy, and builds strength. Not Twinkies and Ho-Hos, okay? Not gummy bears. Macri slammed the previous food pyramid as corrupt. For decades, we've been fed a corrupt food pyramid that has a myopic focus on demonizing natural, healthy, saturated fats, telling you not to eat eggs and steak, and ignoring a giant blind spot, which is refined carbohydrates, added sugars, ultra processed foods like dried cereals or whatever those nuggets are. That kind of stuff is not good for you. It's not good for you. He cited a study finding that 6 to 7 children out of 10 are receiving categories via ultra processed foods. That's an epidemic. Now we have a generation of kids addicted to refined carbohydrates, low in protein. We have 40% of our kids now with chronic disease, and it's not their fault. This is something that is the result of bad advice from the government and a medical establishment that for decades peddled research from a flawed 1960s model. Oz said that the latest dietary guidance will have a major impact on reducing the need for weight loss drugs. Wow, every single hour I hear about multiple Ozempic or Ozempic style drugs that are designed to get that fat off of you, that fat you've been packing around because you're eating all that phony food. The best way to reduce drug spend in America is to not need the drugs in the first place. What you're hearing today with these dietary guidelines adjustments are going to be massively effective in not just dropping the need for us to buy these weight loss drugs, but buy these expensive drugs for autoimmune problems. That's where your body is fighting your own body because you've messed up the food so badly going into the body that it turns on itself. That's what Crohn's disease is. That's what all this bullshit that you see. 30% of healthcare costs are directly attributable to being fat. Okay, let's just say, and it's not racist to say that. Obesity is not racist. Believe me, it attacks everybody. That's about $300 billion a year, by the way, just for Medicare. You see these people come in, they're 50%, 60, 70% overweight. And they're saying, oh, my back hurts me, my knees hurt me, my feet are breaking down. Well, no shit, because gravity is using all that weight against you. You ever see some of the beach photos, just photos of the beach crowds from the 1960s, 70s? There are no fat people. Everybody's thin. Everybody's in shape. You look at the beach now, and it's a pork fest. It's a pork fest. Everybody's a size 12. There are no more size 0, size 1, size 2. Those people don't exist. They're all chubby, and it's killing you. So it's time, yes, son of a beach. Whatever, Washaki Wind. That's what I'm saying. Eat right and you'll look great. Okay? Eat proper food and you'll look great. Right? All right. Let's talk about. Oh, this is good. Let me just check my chat room again really quick here because they come up with great things to say. Oh, he went down south to see my Sal. My Sal? Yeah, my Sal sing polyunsaturated fat. That's pretty good, Flippy too. Pretty good. Interesting. Yeah, whales on the beach, East Coast 20. That's right. I mean, when I was young, there was a lot of dangerous marine life out there, and they were usually in two-piece bathing suits. Nowadays, that doesn't exist. They're all whales. You're exactly right. You're exactly right. All right. What's being done about the upcoming elections? Well, there are a lot of things. The taking down of Venezuela is definitely going to have an effect on the uh, the election machines and the tallying fraud that is taking place because it's not. It doesn't just happen here. They're manipulating elections all over the world. That's going to fall apart. But it's more than that. It's also the money. So USAID, Planned Parenthood, Act Blue, and of course now they're going after the Somali child care industry, which is untold billions of dollars in fraud. And you know, and as well as I do, there's no possible way that Somalis came up with this on their own, right? They're not smart enough. They are inbred. They have an average 60 IQ. You don't believe me? Talk to some of them. Yeah, it's generations of marrying your sister and first cousins. It's having an effect. They didn't think of this plan on their own. This plan was thought up by Democrats, and it was designed to funnel dark money into their election networks so that they could fund candidates that are functionally illiterate. Functionally illiterate. And it turns out that they have just discovered and shut down another revenue stream for this dark money support for communists and radicals. The Department of Justice is dispatching a team of prosecutors to guess where? Yep, Minnesota. And they're going to reinforce the U.S. Attorney's Office and put the perpetrators of this widespread fraud behind bars. That's our Pam Bondi, right? The one you've been saying, oh, what, there haven't been any arrests. Well, okay, they're going after this low-hanging fruit in Minnesota. But it isn't going to stop there, because what they're going to do is they're going to apply RICO standards. This is the organized crime standard. It is going to get them an ability to create a model by which they can go after their perpetrators in Ohio and Maine and Washington State and Illinois and New York and California. Yeah, this is unbelievable how much money we're talking about. But the RICO standards, RICO process allows them to do things that will really take the wind out of the sails. First of all, they can seize all the homes. They can seize all the cars. They can seize all the bank accounts. They can seize all the jewelry and personal assets that these people have accumulated. And you just take it because it's all bought with fraudulent money. So she says, we will deliver severe consequences in Minnesota and stand ready to deploy to other states where similar fraud schemes are robbing American taxpayers. The surge of prosecutors to Minnesota comes as the Trump administration has sent about 2,000 federal agents to the Minneapolis-St. Paul region to crack down on fraud and illegal Somali immigrants. Since 2022, nearly 100 Minnesota residents have been charged with felony fraud, most relating to the Feeding Our Future scandal, where mostly Somali, and by the way, it's about 300 now. Somali immigrants raked in hundreds of millions through welfare money meant for poor Americans during COVID-19. Of those charged with felony fraud in Minnesota, more than 86% are Somali immigrants. The Trump administration has estimated that some $1.9 billion has been stolen from taxpayers as a result of the fraud scheme. Our sources are telling us just in Minnesota, it's over $8 billion. By the time you add Ohio and you add Washington State and you add Maine and New York, Illinois, and California, we're talking north of $30 billion. $30 billion. I think it's going to get to the point where President Trump is able to say, look, Secretary of Treasury Scott Bessent, here's the deal. That $37 trillion in debt they say we owe, about 70% of that is fraud. 70% of our debt is fraud. And so I believe what President Trump can do, should do, maybe possibly will do, is say, I'll tell you what we're going to do, Federal Reserve. We're going to write off 70% of that debt. We're not paying back fraud. We're just not. It was never meant to borrow money to commit this fraud, and we're not going to perpetrate it by paying you. So they're going to write it off. Our debt just dropped by 70%. Now we only owe about $9 trillion. I'm just saying, It can happen. Yeah, it's a lot of stern letters. That's right. Well, I'm totally with you. I'm totally with you, Stanley Mays. The Trump administration is running out of time. This year's election aren't looking good for Trump. Well, I think they are looking good for Trump. The Democrats only have like an 18% approval rating. It doesn't mean they won't cheat like hell. They will, but there are a lot of things being put in place to prevent that cheating. Hopefully, the Supreme Court will support efforts to accomplish my three-step plan. Now, it's not five, it's not six, it's not 18, it's not 10, it's three. Super simple. Vote once in person with ID. Simple as that. Vote once in person with ID, purple finger, done. That's the only way we're going to beat him. And if we implement that federal plan, and all states have to follow that plan, vote once in person with ID, the Democrats will never win another election as long as we live, not in their present form. Yeah, 18% is a landslide, Mark Hosepian says. Yeah, it could be if they got all 18% to come out and vote. Well, they will because they'll just vote for them, right? They'll just vote for them. You make a mistake, though, Stanley. You're saying Trump's not on the ballot. This time he will be. Trump will be on the ballot this time, and especially with the America 250 campaign that has a lot of money behind it. It's going to happen in all 50 states, and it is going to drive patriotism home. Everybody's going to be excited about it. Everybody's going to be motivated to vote. All right, let's talk a little bit about the LA fires. Back in the news, obviously. More than a dozen wrongful death lawsuits were filed today, well, actually over the last few weeks, against, yep, you got it, the city of Los Angeles, as grieving families race to meet a year-end deadline, allowing them to recover damages for their loved ones' pain and suffering in the deadly Palisades fire. We're talking about pets and people. Lawsuits against the state and the city were reportedly filed during the final weeks of 2025 before the December 31st expiration of a California law that permitted families to seek compensation for what was endured by victims during their deaths, because it was actually lack of preparedness and lack of skill and leadership by the city of Los Angeles that was responsible for those deaths. The hardest hit residents were targeting both the city and state with legal action over what they call a complete failure by the government on multiple levels. Some 16 wrongful death lawsuits were submitted in the last few weeks of December alone, as local residents still mourn for the loss and look ahead to rebuilding their lives in the place they knew and loved. A coalition of law firms, and this is why it's really something serious, really something to consider as formidable, because we're not talking about one slip and fall law firm. It's a coalition of law firms, some of the most powerful in the country. And they're working on behalf of the victims. And believe me, the victims will weigh heavily on juries, alleging not only did the state and city mishandle the situation, but the deadly Palisades fire could have been prevented, and it wasn't. It was negligence on the side of the city. Attorney Roger Beal, whose firm is representing a handful of the cases, told reporters what happens next is a litany of state and local failures, and it continues to be exposed. It is a complete failure by the government on multiple levels. First, the fire shouldn't have started in the first place. That should have been something the state prevented. But once it starts, that's where the city in its infrastructure steps in and says, all right, well, let's at least give the fire fight some water. Beal alleged A lot more evidence has been uncovered to highlight the state's failures as landowners and not as landowners and not doing its due diligence to ensure the hotspots from the Lockman fire were completely extinguished. Days later, that blaze reignited into the Palisades fire, according to the Post. Of course, they had DEI hires as the police chief, and they wanted to cut the budget, so they said, "Look, just throw some dirt on it, get the smoke to stop, and then clock out, please." The state really had an obligation to go up there on its own property and, in accordance with its own protocol, inspect the land, closing the park down to make sure there were no hot spots or any of the public safety issues. And they just didn't do it. They opted to save money and cut the budget, and the fire reignited. The wrongful death complaints were filed as short-term documents in the consolidated Palisades fire litigation and include circumstances of each victim's death and photographs of the deceased. That's what the juries will have in front of them. What is it, Washaki? How did Palisades vote? Oh, in 2024, Harris 72%, Trump 28%. Yeah, Palisades fire was early in January of 2025. Right. So everybody that lived there thought everything was just hunky dory. Let's go ahead and vote Democrat. And they did. And they literally cut their own throats because when it came time to fight the fire, there was no water. There was no water in the reservoir. And they knew all about it. Hmm. Good observations. See if there's anybody over in Foxhole. Wow, not yet. Wow, Foxhole's really falling down on the job tonight. Mm-mm-mm. Yeah, the blue roof thing's been debunked, right? Adolph Newsom never fixed the main reservoir. 5 years. That's true. That's true. It was empty. Plenty of rainwater. Plenty of rainwater. They just didn't have the reservoir working. So we might as well recap Venezuela because more than 600,000 Venezuelans stripped of temporary protection status by the Trump administration last year. They are being encouraged to go back. Go back. You've been here in this country. We've taken care of you for a few years. Well, now Nicolas Maduro is gone. So go back and take back your neighborhoods. President Trump's decisive action to remove Maduro marks a turning point for Venezuelans. Now they can return to the country they love and rebuild the future. Matthew Tregesser, who's a spokesman for the U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services, said in a statement, TPS is granted to people whose home country has experienced a natural disaster, an armed conflict, or other extraordinary conditions. It applied to these people because they had to get out of Dodge because Maduro was gunning for them. It provides eligible migrants with work authorization and temporary protection from deportation. I've known several. One was a doctor, another was an engineer. So in April, the Trump administration terminated the TPS granted to about 348,000 Venezuelans by the Biden administration in 2023. In November, the administration terminated TPS for 268,000 Venezuelans who were given the designation by the Biden administration in 2021. Venezuela is more free today than it was yesterday, Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem said Sunday. Noem said former TPS holders could apply for refugee status, but according to a December policy memo from USCIS, All pending asylum applications are on hold as part of a national security review. Venezuelans are also affected by the Trump administration's pause on immigration benefit decisions for nationals of countries on the travel ban list, which, by the way, includes Venezuela. The Department of Homeland Security rejected interpretations that Noam's comments meant Venezuelans who lost TPS would now be considered for refugee admissions. That's not the case. President Trump is bringing stability to Venezuela and bringing to justice an illegitimate narco-terrorist dictator who stole from its own people. Secretary Noam ended temporary protected status for more than 500,000 Venezuelans and not protected status. And now they can go home to a country they love. South Florida has been the largest concentration of Venezuelans in the U.S., including many who were granted TPS. Following Maduro's capture, which we'll talk about that in just a second, celebrations broke out Saturday and Sunday across South Florida, reviving hopes among Venezuelans there that they may one day return home. Maria Teresa Moreno, director of 20 Miami, which means 20, a Venezuelan political movement aligned with opposition leader and Nobel Prize laureate Marina Corina Machado, said the moment could have implications beyond Venezuela's borders. The liberation of Venezuela may also represent the liberation of Nicaragua and Cuba, Colombia, all of the region that has been victims of these evil projects spread across the continent. So the whole operation, which I call Operation Noriega, to capture Nicolas Maduro and his wife, I sincerely suspect was an operation. Not in the sense that let's go down and grab the guy and bring him to justice. I think that they gave Maduro many, many very lucrative ways to save his life. Because you know, and I know Maduro was not the mastermind of this whole takeover and collapse of Venezuela. When our Delta Force, our Combat Action Group, they call it CAG, when they went down there, the troops that they ran up against were not Venezuelans, they were Cubans. They were Cubans. So you get the impression someone else is behind putting Maduro into power and giving him the ideas, even though he was a good orator, he wasn't the mastermind behind what went on about the taking down of Venezuela to a third world country. The same forces probably wanted to take Maduro out and replace him with someone else. And so he knows this. He knows that his days are numbered, and that's why he had his own, special guard watching him. But I think what happened is Trump said, look, there is a way that you can get out of this and you can live to tell about it. Let us come in. We will come in and we will capture you. Don't you shoot at our guys. You shoot at our guys, it'll go very bad for you. I want no casualties. Our guys will come in, we will capture you, and we will safely get you out of the country and into protective custody. It's going to look and smell and sound like a trial, but it won't be. Because you're going to be able to plead not guilty. That's going to delay things. You won't even see a courtroom for a year, maybe 2. And then it'll take 3 to 5 years to fight it out. In the meantime, your life is saved. You and your wife. You're out. And they will lose interest in you. And you can at least live some modicum of safety. But with Maduro out of the way, it gives President Trump an opportunity to put in a specially trained government. And I don't mean that the military is going to go in and take over the country. That's not the point of it. The design is to create a continuity of government that allows maybe the expats of Venezuelans, but maybe the Venezuelans who can actually read and write and have jobs and own property to assume the role of a public servant and move toward free and open elections. That can happen very quickly. Like in 90 days, the elections for the equivalent of assemblyman and magistrate and Supreme Court and U.S. attorneys, or not U.S. attorneys, but Venezuelan attorneys couldn't get back in place. Couple that with the revenue stream that's going to come from Venezuelan oil, which is not going to be paid for by Chinese because Chinese are not going to benefit from this. It'll come from U.S. buyers, U.S. refineries, specifically in Texas, are built to handle Venezuelan crude. Venezuelan crude is heavy black crude. The refineries in Europe are not built for that. The refineries in China are not built for that. Just don't have the ability to refine that kind of crude. Americans are the ones that invented the process. Americans are the ones that control that process for now. And so what's going to happen is immediate revenue from the Venezuelan oil that's going to come to the U.S. Forget about Russia. Russia doesn't need oil. Russia has plenty of oil. They have their own oil, and it's a better quality oil than Venezuelan oil. That wasn't the point in the first place. It was China who needed the oil. China is the one that doesn't have their own oil reserves. They have other things like rare earth metals, but they don't have oil. They rely on other countries for oil, like Iran and like Nigeria and like Venezuela. Well, the Venezuelan crude, about 30 million barrels of it, are taken off the market and now pumped into American refineries, which of course increases the amount of available refined oil like gasoline and toluene and methanol and everything that we derive from crude oil. Not so much methanol. Methanol comes from natural gas, most of it, but I'd say 90% of it comes from natural gas. That's why methanol's cheap in the wintertime and expensive during the summertime. Because in the wintertime, there's enough volume going on because of gas heat to be able to feed the methanol market. And believe me, methanol is used in all kinds of processes. And in the summertime, when people are not using so much gas, that methanol becomes very expensive, like $5 a gallon. It's quite expensive. This will lower the cost of gasoline in the United States. Now, here in North Carolina, the average is probably about $2.50 a gallon. It's not as cheap as I've seen it, but it's way better filling up my truck for $47 than it was $60, let me tell you. Um, but it's going to get better. I think it's going to get down in the $1.92, $1.95 area. Of course, when this happens, the cost to ship things, to transport things around the country is going to fall. I've already seen diesel fuel less than $4 a gallon. You remember when it was 7 something a gallon and it was costing truckers $2,500 to fill up their truck one time? Well, now the cost is going down. Now you're not going to see an immediate effect on pricing because companies are going to profit take for a while. That's just the nature of free enterprise. But when you increase the profit, it makes room for competition because somebody's going to lower that price a little bit in order to gain market share. And they will gain market share. And then someone else will have to lower, and someone else will have to lower the price. So the profit taking is going to end pretty quickly. I would say 90 days. And this low gas price is going to have a direct effect on the retail price of food, clothing, all kinds of finished goods are going to go down because the cost of transportation has dropped and competition has set back in. And right. Clean oil, dirty elections. That's pretty much true. Chevron left California not for that reason. They left because of the taxes, because Adolf Newsom was going to tax them just for being rich. So they said, okay, well, we'll leave. And that's what they did. All right. Oh, we are out of time in this hour. It means we'll take a quick break. We'll be back in about 3 minutes. Please don't go away, right? Let's make sure that this is going to play. It should.
Empowered
There we go.
physically, mentally, and spiritually.
The rooster has crowed out the opening bars of a new day. You've dragged yourself out of bed. You turn on your device. You want to know what's going on in the world. But you're hungry for a topical show that serves up those breakfast headlines just that little bit differently. Do you like your early morning news the way you like your eggs over easy? Served with slathers of salsa-like sass? Do you like those first headlines of the day to deliver a punch as powerful as that first cup of joe? Join Mitchell Bupp at his breakfast table for Revolution in the Morning, where he will digest, dissect, and dismantle those new day's national and global news headlines with razor-sharp relish. Find Mitchell here at revolution.radio every Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday morning, 8 to 10 a.m. Eastern on Studio B.
Through everything, we have to remember that we have more in common than not in common. And to find this common ground, tune in to Conversations with Eagleflower, Wednesdays, 4 p.m. to 5 p.m. Eastern Time on Studio A. Because we come to this table of life to learn in the best possible way and experience this gift of life from our mutual Creator. So let's learn together and build our best future with Conversations with Eagleflower, Wednesdays, 4 p.m. to 5 p.m. Eastern Time, Studio A on Revolution Radio.
I will defend myself against their tyranny. Number 3 is my radio broadcast. I'm squarely in front of the public all the time, and they all know what's going on.
For we are opposed around the world by a monolithic and ruthless conspiracy that relies primarily on covert means for expanding its sphere of influence.
Hello, my name is John Wayne, and I do a broadcast here at freedomslips.com, revolution.radio, called The Unequivocal Truth, DEFCON 1.
Freedom and fear are at war.
And folks, I assure you, we are in Defense Mission 1 as we journey perilously through this paradigm that we currently reside in. And I ask that you join me every Saturday, 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for The Unequivocal Truth, DEFCON 1.
We'll never surrender.
Thank you for listening to Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. Any commercial advertising you may hear in this program is of the sole discretion and benefit of the host of whose program you are listening to. Revolution Radio does not endorse any commercial products, nor does it accept monetary compensation for on-air advertising of commercial products, nor will it ever. We are and shall remain 100% listener supported. Any product advertising on this program are considered used at higher risk, and Revolution Radio shall not be held liable for any claims or damages received from any product advertised within this program. Revolution Radio, where information never sleeps.
Thanks for hanging in there while we took that short break. Now back to America Free Radio with host Brooks Agnew here at Revolution Radio.
All right. Thank you, Revolution Radio, for that great station identification. We love our Revolution Radio audience. 4 million strong around the country, listening by audio through TalkStream Live, TuneIn, Orange, all kinds of different radio apps. People are listening to us live, and we appreciate you more than you know. Listen closely. The ones that are watching by video, this will be a lot easier for you because we're going to go to my website, which is brooksagnew.com, brooksagnew.com. All right, we're just going to click on this button right here. And it's going to take you to my website. You'll know you're at the right place because it says, I'm Brooks Agnew. There's my picture. It's so simple. Anyone can do it. You can Google it. You can DuckDuckGo it, and you can find it. On the cover are 2 buttons. We just make it as easy as we possibly can. One button says get my free newsletter. It doesn't get any simpler than that. The only thing I want from you is your name and email address, and that's it. I'm going to send you a newsletter no more than twice a week, Wednesdays and Sundays. It'll have a link to tonight's program on YouTube so you can watch it at your leisure, speed it up, slow it down, speed through it. But you can also share it with friends. And that's what I ask you to do. Now, Twitter has, or X has done a great job in reducing my followers down to 1,111 followers. Used to have several thousand. It doesn't matter to me because it's not that I don't want people following, but you have to understand when you tweet something, your followers don't see it. That's all I ask of X. All I ask, Elon, is that when I tweet something, I want the people that follow me to see it, but they don't. They don't. But I get all kinds of mail from people who do, and that's what I care about. So it doesn't really matter how many followers I have, it just matters how many people see my tweets. And in the newsletter, when you sign up for it, you're going to get the clips to, well, a link to tonight's program, but you're also going to get links to other goodies that are important for you. The other button, and I make this prominent, is to get the ivermectin and fenbendazole, or what we call Ivan and fenbendazole, without a prescription. If you click that button, it's going to take you to a special page inside my website. Now, the packaging might differ a little bit, but it's 99% pure, and now we have sourced it in the U.S., so we're able to ship it to you much quicker. Right now, we have a little delay because of the flooding in California. Things just got slow, and our supply chain emptied out, but it's on the way. I promise you it's on the way. And once this delivery arrives to me, we will catch up all of 2025, and then we're 1 week away. So if you order on a Monday, you'll get it on a Monday. Now, I have to tell you that probably 80% of my customer base does not listen to this program. It's all word of mouth. They just tell their friends. Why? Because we are the only reliable source out there without a prescription. And this is where you get it, and you get it at wholesale prices. I also want to tell you about True Niagen. You can get it through my website. It doesn't cost you a penny more than Amazon or anywhere else, and it is great stuff. This is how you chase the aging away. This boosts the mitochondria in your body and allows your body to do what it did when it was young. And you just stay young. I've been taking it for 8 years. I literally have not aged a day in 8 years. The Insulis, I have mine right here. I did it right before the program. I just take this dropper like so, and I put about 6 drops right under the tongue. Let it soak in, and it lowers your A1C numbers. My doctor's very happy about it. Doesn't know where it comes from, doesn't know anything about Insulis, but he's very happy that my A1C numbers are down. We have I get lots and lots of mail from people that do this or have one of their loved ones do it and see their A1C numbers come down as well. That's why it's called insulin-less. Fluoride-free toothpaste. If you're still using Crest or Colgate or Aquafresh, you need to switch toothpaste. You're putting fluoride right into your body. I haven't had any fluoride in my body in 10 years because I'm doing the Himalaya toothpaste. It's fluoride free. It's also free of all that grit that grinds down your enamel. See? Perfectly white, just the way I like them. And don't forget about the Blue Boost. You never see me with a blue tongue or blue lips or blue teeth because I take the Blue Boost. It's not in liquid form, it's in capsule form. You still get that laser tight focus and you get it without the mess. I do want you to consider the EMP shield. Believe it or not, we sell a lot of these things. You attach this to your car. It's very easy to install. Anybody can install it, or you can have your mechanic install it, and it will protect your car in case of an EMP blast or even a close strike by lightning. Trust me, it works. The test video is right here on the website. All you have to do is click that link and watch the video. It's very impressive and very affordable. All right, let's get back to it because we got lots of stuff to talk about. Hang on a second here. All right, we're back. I want to talk a little bit about this civil war that's shaping up. We've talked about civil war from time to time, and you mistake it to think that when the public rises up and the government comes down and mashes them with, martial law, and that's not civil war. That is not civil war. That's not how the last civil war occurred in this country. Civil war occurs when states officially take another side against the federal government. You remember when South Carolina decided to secede from the Union? It wasn't an overnight decision. They pled their case for months and months, years on the floor of the House. And the House just wouldn't listen. And so South Carolina, in order to get out from underneath these grievous taxes that were levied against them by the North, decided to secede from the Union. Well, 12 states followed her. But what started the Civil War, actually, was evicting the Union troops from Fort Sumter. And by the way, this was done without any loss of life. No casualties, no loss of life. There was an accident at Fort Sumter in which one Union troop was killed. It was a cannon accident that they had. But Fort Sumter is very tough, and nobody was injured, nobody was killed, and they simply marched in humiliation and starvation out of Fort Sumter back into Virginia. It's just the way it happened. Then the South changed the gauge of their railroad, printed their own money, and decided to go their own way, and along with 12 other states. That's Civil War. So Tim Walz decided today to activate the Minnesota Emergency Operations Center after this woman who attempted to kill an ICE agent with her car was shot. They used this flashpoint to make a public statement. Here's the statement. To Minnesotans, know that our administration is going to stop at nothing to seek accountability and justice. In other words, they're going after ICE. They're not actually concerned about accountability and justice. They're concerned about getting ICE out of Minnesota because they don't want to lose their Somali community and they don't want the daycare center fraud to be exposed. And he added more. He said, we have soldiers in training and prepared to be deployed if necessary. In other words, Minnesota National Guard troops are going to be ordered to capture and remove ICE from the state. Think about that for a second. Think about it. Minnesota officials have announced a vigil for their comrade who was shot dead after accelerating at full throttle an SUV toward an ICE agent in Minneapolis. You've watched all the slow motion video, right? You know why they did it in slow motion? Because they don't want you to pay attention that this woman actually floored the vehicle. This vehicle took off like a dragster at this ICE agent, ran over his foot, and he had no choice but to fire because he didn't know who was standing behind him. This was a full throttle attack, not a gentle roll forward with the wheels turned, obviously showing an intent to leave the scene and not really hurt anybody. That's not what happened. That's not what happened. It happened at full throttle, not in slow motion. They're claiming the woman was a peaceful legal observer. Well, she wasn't. They posted emergency vigil in response to ICE shooting. ICE shot and killed an observer today in Minnesota. You see, say her name. We witnessed an atrocious attack on our community today. No, you didn't. Community members were taken from us, and an observer was shot dead. ICE out of Minnesota now. That's what their flyer reads. DHS Secretary Tricia McLaughlin described the incident in an X post in the early afternoon. Today, ICE officers in Minnesota were conducting a targeted operations when rioters began blocking ICE officers. And one of these violent rioters weaponized her vehicle, attempting to run over our law enforcement officers in an attempt to kill them, an act of domestic terrorism. So when you have two versions of a story that are this far apart, it's for a reason. It's for a reason. This is the direct consequence of constant attacks and demonization of our officers by the mayor and the governor, mayor of Minneapolis, and the governor of Minnesota, who fuel and encourage rampant assaults on our law enforcement. These men and women who are simply enforcing the law on the books are facing a 1,300% increase in assaults against them and an 8,000% increase in death threats. This is an evolving situation. That's why I'm bringing it to you tonight, because this is as fresh as it gets, Earth Explorers. In the office of Senator Tina Smith, a Democrat of Minnesota, and Representative Ilhan Omar, another Democrat, whose congressional district includes the scene of the shooting, said the woman was a legal observer. That's a lie. She wasn't a legal observer. She was a terrorist. Governor Tim Walz's office said the shooting occurred in a residential neighborhood in South Minneapolis. He asked people in the community to remain calm. But the New York Times said hundreds of people gathered at the scene and protested the presence of immigration agents. Actually, that's not true. There were about 100 who were blocking ICE agents. After this 47-year-old mom decided to floor her SUV and try to run over an ICE agent, and 2 rounds were fired into her vehicle, one of them fatally injuring her. That 100-person crowd grew to 400. So when the news says that several hundred people were protesting the presence of ICE, that is not true. That is a lie. There were only about 100 people there protesting the presence of ICE. It grew to 400 or more when this female terrorist was shot and killed. Walz intends to hide his attack on ICE behind crowds of innocent civilians who have been duped into this battle. DHS correctly identifies the causal link between Democrat rhetoric and domestic terrorism. These politicians painted targets on federal agents, and a violent extremist acted on their orders. The officer responded with the only currency the mob respects: force. When you attempt to murder the enforcers of our sovereignty, you invite your own destruction, which she did. The blood is on the hands of every sanctuary city official who encouraged this insurrection. acting as human shields. Yeah, it's kind of crazy. So the Civil War is shaping up because Governor Walz is saying, I'm going to activate the Minnesota National Guard. They're going to show up with guns and body armor, and they're going to be arresting ICE agents and getting them out of our state. Now, Kristi Noem and Tom Homan sending ICE there to do a job, which is to round up harmful, dangerous, worst of the worst illegals and deport them. That is a federal effort, a federal law enforcement effort. That trumps anything that states try to do. Now, we're not talking about sending National Guard into Minnesota. We're talking about sending ICE agents, and they're totally authorized to be. For the governor to say, I'm going to mobilize the National Guard, and we're going to arrest your ICE agents, and we're going to either put them in jail or we're going to escort them out of the state. That is a civil war. When an official government of the state decides to use its state military against the federal law enforcement, that's how civil wars start. So Tim Walz is being completely irresponsible in making these. Well, maybe he's being very irresponsible. Maybe he's doing exactly what they ordered him to do. Listen, Timmy, listen very close to me, Timmy. Unless you want to go to jail for the rest of your life for fraud and for facilitating these Somalis doing this daycare center fraud, which you helped them with, unless you want to serve the rest of your life in jail, you'll get these ICE agents the hell out of our state. We need that money. We need that money, and we need the Somalis to keep generating it. We need Somalis to be there pulling in federal money into the state of Minnesota so that we can continue to be powerful. That's what Ilhan Omar was even talking about. She was saying, they shouldn't criticize me. I mean, if anything, they should praise me for bringing all this federal money into the state of Minnesota through criminal activity. I hope that Pam Bondi applies RICO standards and begins seizing everything in sight. Interesting. Hang on a second. I'm looking at the. Yeah. Well, it's true. I think they have to be stopped or they're going to do it again. But how do you stop them? Well, the only way ICE knows to stop them is to keep showing up and keep arresting the worst of the worst, putting them on airplanes and deporting out of our country. And all you're really doing is making the federal government mad. And when you make them mad, they're going to come in with even more. They had 2,000 prosecutors come in. I think now you're going to see 5,000 or 6,000. And I think that the state National Guard does not want to go up against the federal police force. You just don't want to do it. So speaking of illegal Omar, which we were, there have long been reports, some credible, that illegal Omar, now a Democrat member of Congress representing a Somali immigrant majority district in Minnesota, bent the law in trying to give her brother American residency. Those reports have said that she married him in order to give him access to American benefits. She is, after all, a native Somali and often has declared her intention to protect Somalia in her actions as a member of Congress. Somalia first, that's her motto. Somalia first. These people never have been definitely documented. However, as Somalian birth and family records are at best vague, now U.S. Representative Nancy Mace has confirmed that members of Congress just moved to subpoena illegal Omar and her brother husband's immigration records in the Oversight Committee. This is not looking good. Not looking good for illegal Omar. Federal marriage fraud and knowingly entering a marriage to evade immigration laws is a serious felony punishable by prison time, steep fines, denaturalization, and deportation. Marrying a sibling is illegal in every state. We intend to get to the bottom of it in the fraud, denaturalize, and deport illegal Omar. Omar already has been caught up in a long line of scandals in recent weeks. One raises serious questions about how her net worth exploded from a few $100,000 to tens of millions in a matter of a year or three. Her district in Minnesota, and in fact the entire state, now also are embroiled in federal investigations looking at repeating our fraud schemes in the Somali community that have cost taxpayers billions of dollars. Nancy Mace continued, and I quote, public reporting claims that Omar told friends she married the man who became her second husband, allegedly her brother, in 2009 to help him get papers in the U.S. She previously entered a religious marriage in 2002 and didn't legally dissolve this earlier union until years later. Federal marriage fraud is a felony punishable by prison, steep fines, deportation, and there are additional potential state and law questions which need to be answered. If she has nothing to hide, let's put it all on the table. Now, in Somalia, up to 50% of the tribes are inbred. Fathers marrying daughters, first cousins marrying each other, brothers and sisters marrying each other. That's first and second cousin marriages, by the way. The coefficient, there is one of the highest rates of interfamily marriages in the world. Also, some of the highest rates of child brides in the world, one of the highest rates of female genital mutilation on earth is from Somalia. One of the highest rates of polygamy and tribal warfare are fraud and piracy, all from Somalia. Omar should be immediately investigated, thrown in jail, or deported back to Somalia. This is someone who absolutely should be investigated. I think she should be sitting in prison or at least sent back to Somalia. Homeland Security confirms there is demonstrable evidence of illegal Omar marrying her brother for U.S. citizenship. Yeah, they're subject to mental retardation, deformities, all kinds of stuff. Omar repeatedly has denied the charges. Not really. What she basically said is none of your business. It's absurd. It's offensive. Yeah, it is. But she never actually denied it. Illegal Omar, whatever the hell her name is, we ought to get her the hell out. She married her brother in order to get in, right? She married her brother. Can you imagine if Donald Trump married his sister? She's a beautiful person. If I married my sister to get my citizenship, do you think I'd last for about 2 hours? Or would it be something less than that? She married her brother to get in, therefore she's here illegally. She should get the hell out. Throw her the hell out. Earlier, Trump's border czar Tom Homan said there was a fraud investigation on the issue. Pulling the records now, pulling the files, and we're looking at it. Wow. If that's what it takes to get rid of her, I say we do it. How many of you are aware that the National Bar Association isn't even American? Yeah, that's right. Barrister. Oh, wow. Gramanon says illegal bromar. Yes, inbreeding causes mental illnesses. We've known that for a long, long time. That's why it's forbidden in this country. But barrister, esquire, these are all titles of nobility that come from the old world order. Texas has officially terminated the American Bar Association oversight of its law schools yesterday. It's the first state in the nation to do so, and I doubt it will be the last. In a two-page order, the Texas Supreme Court approved amendments it proposed in late September of 2025, which effectively declared that the American Bar Association should no longer have the final say on whether a law school's graduates are eligible to sit for the Texas bar exam and become licensed to practice law in Texas. How about that? As noted by local media, the bar exam is a requirement to become a licensed lawyer in each state. You have to pass the bar in that particular state in order to practice law in that state. But the court advised that it intends to provide stability, certainty, and flexibility to currently approved law schools by guaranteeing ongoing approval for schools that satisfy a set of simple, objective, and ideological neutral criteria using metrics no more onerous than those currently required by the American Bar Association. So the change means law school graduates who want to practice in Texas, they're no longer required to attend an ABA, American Bar Association accredited school. And the authority to approve those law schools now rests solely with the state's highest civil court. As of now, law schools currently on Texas's list of approved schools need only ensure compliance with American Bar Association standards noted by the court to maintain ongoing approval by the court. But they don't have to be a member in good standing of the bar. Tuesday's developments represent a major step in dismantling the ideological stranglehold the American Bar Association has been allowed to maintain over America's law schools and the legal profession. Oh, yeah. As the report says, the American Bar Association regularly advocates for and engages in unlawful racial and sexual discrimination that is a highly partisan actor on behalf of the Democrat Party and other anti-Constitution activists. The organization, she noted, deeply affects the U.S. lawyer pipeline and licensing system, accrediting law schools, rating judges, and weaponizing lawyers. It's rabid leftism, and it means the American Bar Association systematically ratchets the entire U.S. legal system against the U.S. Constitution. I see it all the time. I see it all the time. I have friends that are lawyers. I golf with lawyers. I know exactly what they're talking about. Since returning to office, the Trump administration has put the American Bar Association on notice for engaging in the unlawful racial and sexual discrimination of the industry. In February 2025, Attorney General Pam Bondi issued a letter lambasting the organization's accrediting body for subjecting law faculties and law students to unlawful race and sex discrimination under the guise of diversity. That's why we get lawyers that allegedly pass the bar exam who can't finish a sentence in proper English. They're functionally illiterate, but they're black, so it's okay. And the policy blatantly violates our nation's civil rights laws and conflicts with the U.S. Supreme Court's 2023 decision declaring affirmative action unconstitutional. The letter further warns that the American Bar Association could see its accreditation authority revoked if it continues to embrace such practices. I would like to see it. Other states considering whether to ditch the ABA's role in their law school accreditation processes. Sorry about that. Include Florida, Ohio, and Tennessee. You're going to see it. It's going to happen. I would say North Carolina is not far behind. What else is going on out there? Oh my gosh. Something we've talked about for years on this program, probably at least 5 years on this program, is the subject of dual citizenship. So Anna Luna, standing before the House, demanded today what nobody in Washington wants to hear. We've been talking about it, and I'm sure other podcasters have been talking about it, but now she's brought it to the House floor, finally. She wants a total ban on dual citizens serving in Congress. I think it's high time. I don't care if you're a dual citizen with France in the US or Britain in the US or Israel in the US. Pick one. Pick one. And if it ain't US, you're out. Just like that. Okay? You cannot be a citizen of Israel and a citizen of the United States. Because if we should ever have a disagreement with Israel, or God forbid we go to war with Israel, we want to know what side you're going to be on. Are you going to be on the side of Israel, where you accept orders from its president or prime minister? Or are you on the side of America, which you receive orders from the president and are loyal to him? You see, that's what we want to know. No dual citizens in Congress, no exceptions, no gray areas. One damn passport, one country, one allegiance, right? If you hold foreign citizenship, you don't belong in American power. The fallout? Oh, it would be immediate. Staffers are whispering, lawyers are scrambling behind the scenes, insiders say a list of dual national lawmakers is already circulating. And believe me, it's large. It's like 40%. 40% of Congress, and maybe even higher than that for the Senate. It isn't about paperwork. It's about influence, people. It's about influence. Foreign money, divided loyalties, and now Capitol Hill is holding its breath. Which powerful names are at risk of disqualification? Which foreign governments are quietly panicking? And how long before classified briefings start leaking? Supporters say Anna Luna's plan is long overdue. It's a firewall to protect U.S. sovereignty. Critics claim there might be a purge coming. I, for one, wouldn't mind it, but I don't think there's nobody has any business having dual citizenship and being in leadership in America. And that includes the staffers, that includes the bureaucrats. You're going to pledge allegiance to this flag and this flag only. Anybody out there, just show me by a show of hands in the chat room if you agree with that. Yes, Anna Luna rocks. You're right, Washaki Win. She rocks. I would love to talk to her. Of course I would. On a variety of subjects, on UFOs, on the secret space program. Believe me, I would love to speak with her about all that stuff. I could set her straight. She could go to Congress with confidence. Clear Sky 48 is on Foxhole. Michigan gas tax went up by 32 cents or 52 cents. Ow, 52 cents. Wow. That's per gallon, the first of the year. Wow. Plant 22 is here. Sleuth for Truth. What is that? Gas prices dropping gives the states a chance to rise their taxes. Yeah, It's possible. But now the states are dealing with mass migration. I mean, look what happened in New York. Look what happened in California. California lost 2 congressional seats. Why? Those people didn't die. They left. They got a U-Haul and they left. They went to Florida. They went to North Carolina. They went to South Carolina. They went to Texas. They left California. Now, California has arguably the best weather, I think, on the planet. I was born and raised there. Everybody likes the weather. That's why people went there in the first place. And, the state had so much natural resources. It had oil, it had gold, it had the Central Valley. It was huge in ranching and in agriculture, almonds, tomatoes, all kinds of stuff. But the leadership of California, usually coming out of San Francisco or the Los Angeles area, has destroyed that state. What was a beautiful Orange County, full of factories and NASA supporting and JPL supporting stuff, Caltech, some of the brightest minds on the entire planet. All that went away. All that went away. They just hurt people so bad. Nobody could afford to live there. Nobody wanted to live there anymore because, yeah, the weather's great, but what good does that do you when you're homeless or you're a family of 4 living in a 2-bedroom apartment? You see what I'm saying? It's just not possible. I know brilliant people with whom I've had business relationships for 20 years who are suffering in California. They want to stay because their family's there, their roots are there. It goes back a couple generations, but they're dying. They're dying. They could live well off in any other state just about if they would just move, but they won't move because of that family tie and because of the weather. So I don't know what to tell you. Orange County used to be all red. It used to be all conservative, Reagan and all that stuff. And now Orange County, they just cheat their way into leadership. Look at Karen Bass. I mean, what a thief, what a liar, what a communist. And yet she's still in power. People have not gotten rid of her. They recalled Adolf Newsom and then defeated the recall. More people signed the recall request than voted in the recall. If that makes any sense to you. It doesn't make any sense to me. I don't know why they did that. Karen Bass is a largemouth. Yeah, Karen Washakiwin says that, but she's not just a largemouth. She's a large and she's a violent terrorist who ended up in leadership position. And she's cheating the people who earned the money and established the LA area as one of the wealthiest areas on the planet. Oh, Mark Hovsepian says, I lived in California during the Duke. Good times. Right. Well, I don't know, it was maybe not the last time, but it was a couple times ago. I met with my business associate that I was telling you for 20 years, and we decided to walk to lunch. And there are a couple of noodle shops not far from his warehouse. So we took off from the warehouse, walked a couple blocks, and we went to turn under an overpass of the 405. 405 is the San Diego freeway. As we crossed under the overpass, the stench just blew me away. I mean, it reminded me of Nepal. I've been to Nepal, and the sewer in Nepal is a ditch that runs down the street. So people shit in a bucket in their house, right? And then they take the bucket outside and dump it in the middle of the street in the ditch, which isn't very deep. And then what happens is when it rains, which there's a rainy season in Nepal. It flushes out that ditch. That ditch flows to the river and the Ganges, and out to sea it goes. That's their hygiene. But in the months that the Ganges is not flowing really well, or the rain is not falling, which is usually the dry season, I was there in April, and believe me, that's the dry season. It stinks to high heaven. Fly blown, stinky, nasty, cholera infested area. You don't want to go there. You can watch it on TV, you won't smell it. You go there in person, you can't get away from it. In fact, it's your nose gets used to it, and then you realize, oh my gosh, I'm still breathing that stuff in. Well, that's the way this smelled. Because they had just gotten done with a bunch of rain, a couple of weeks of rain, and the people that were staying underneath that overpass got flooded out. And all the piss and crap that was on the sidewalks and in the gutter underneath this overpass where people had pitched their tents, it got flushed out. All the tents and sleeping bags and all that stuff was all flooded out of there. But you could not get rid of the stench. So you just kind of hold your breath like this and walk under the underpass to get to the little strip mall that had the noodle shop in it. Now it wasn't so bad going there. I mean, it brought back memories of Nepal and the state of poverty that this area has been in forever. It's been that way for thousands of years. You can imagine 1,000-year-old piss, but that's what it smelled like. It wasn't so bad walking there. But after you go to the noodle shop and you're all full and feeling good, noodles are great, and you eat a lot because with Oriental food like that, Asian food, you're gonna have to eat again in a couple hours because it doesn't stick with you. But nevertheless, you're kind of full, right? And walking back under that bridge with a full stomach, you just want to throw it all back up again. And yet the people have acclimated to it. What used to be eucalyptus trees and beautiful ocean breeze in the afternoon, a little overcast sky to kind of keep the searing sun off of you, used to be beautiful when I was a kid. Beautiful. It turned into a cesspool by Democrat leadership in California. It's awful. The roads are in bad shape. The sewer system's in bad shape. It stinks to high heaven. There are old mattresses and cardboard and insulation all over the hills by the freeway because that's federal land or that's state land. And so what happens is that the homeless, they just set up camp. They set up camp on these areas and the state doesn't get rid of them. And so what used to be beautiful landscaping along the freeways, you could drive like to Pasadena or something on the Ventura Freeway or the Pasadena Freeway. What used to be a really pleasant drive has turned into driving, in the middle of India. It's just sad. It's sad. It's depressing. Yeah, yeah, exactly, Washaki Win. All right. Wow. 9:47 already. So let me just check the chat room again, see if there are interesting things. Taiwan had a benjo ditches in the 60s. Yeah, exactly right. Yeah. And I don't know, Taiwan is not Singapore. Yes, it can be done. Absolutely can be done. After World War II, the area of Malaysia in there had the crap bombed out of it by the Chinese, by the Japanese, by the Americans. It changed hands a lot of times. And this particular area that I'm talking about kind of jutted out into the ocean, and it was very strategic. So you could set up big guns there, and you could stop naval vessels from coming and going. And that's exactly what they did. Of course, because there were big guns there, it also got the shit pounded out of it. I mean, it just got bombed into oblivion. And by the end of the war, by the time the war was over in 1945, this particular area was so bad. There were no standing buildings, there were no roads, there was no clean water, there was no hygiene whatsoever. It was so bad that when Malaysia decided that it was time to rebuild, let's clean this place up, let's tear down all the damaged stuff, and let's rebuild everything new, they decided to leave this particular area out. So they carved it off, called it something else, and Malaysia went about its business. This area that jutted out into the sea was so damaged, it would have taken so much to fix it for Malaysia that they said, we're not going to do it. But the people who lived in that area decided to do it themselves. They decided to do it themselves. They didn't ask anybody to come in and do it for them. They did it. And that area is known as Singapore. Well, you go to Singapore today, it is a model of cleanliness. It's a model of skyscrapers and banks and such a system of community. These people have done the impossible. Singapore is now the jewel of Micronesia. Absolutely. And they did it themselves. And they did it in a remarkably short period of time. There's no poop on the streets. There are no homeless. There are no needles. There's nobody, no trash. The place is pristine all the time. It can be done. And I think it can be done with someplace like Gaza, too. You know, Gaza has had the crap blown out of it because, Hezbollah and Hamas has decided to uh, let the Palestinian people serve as human shields. They would lob rockets and then step out of the way and let the return fire come back and decimate the people who live in Palestine. It's a human rights disaster. And Gaza is a pile of rubble compared to what it was 20 years ago. Absolute pile of rubble. But Gaza is in a pristine location. It's right on the edge of the Med. It's north of Israel. I mean, there's a lot of advantage to Gaza. Gaza could be, in a very short amount of time, because there are a lot of interested investors, if the people who live in Palestine would agree to work to clean it up. Gaza could be the Singapore of the Middle East. It could actually make Dubai look sad. Now, Dubai is kind of a playground for the rich. I mean, really opulent. Gaza doesn't have to be opulent to be beautiful. It doesn't have to be. It could be like Istanbul. It could be like Budapest. It could be better than that. It could be better than that. It's in a great location, absolutely phenomenal location, especially if they wanted to increase the size of the canal that would connect the Med to the rest of the area. Now you can't really build out into the Med. That's just not possible. You can't build like a jetty out into the Mediterranean Sea and expect it to be stable. Why? Because it's on the eastern side of the Med and it gets the worst of the worst weather. Anything you try to build there is just going to be washed away. But you can build a canal to connect Gaza directly to the Med. And in the inner part of that canal could be absolutely stunning. Absolutely stunning. You know, one of the things I noticed when I went to the Mediterranean and spent so much time along the Greek Isles and sailing across the Mediterranean Sea is the color of the water. It's like nothing I've seen anywhere in the world. It's a special blue. You know, when you're off Santorini or the Amalfi Coast or even the Greek islands, it's stunning. The sea floor is a special color. And the only other place I've seen that blue is in the glacier-fed areas of Switzerland. Yeah, crazy. Go to Geneva, Switzerland. A lot of the city actually sits along the river, which is glacier fed. And it's a big river, and there's a lot of water that moves. It's swift water. And they have piers built out into it, and then businesses built on the pier. So you can actually go out there and have dinner out on the pier, which is a solid concrete pier. But it's the most uneasy feeling because as you're walking along, you look to your left, you see this body of water flowing, and it is the deepest, darkest blue you ever saw. You're also walking directly over that water because it's going underneath you and coming out the other side. And it gives you kind of a frame dragging uh, instability. Like it's not like you feel the piers washing away, but you see all this motion going on around you, and it's difficult to get your bearings. Like, am I really standing on solid ground, attached to the granite underneath me? And this water could wash all this away in a second if it just decided to have an angry day. But people have been doing that for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years. And so, you get used to it, I guess, even in a couple days. It's very cold, kind of a not very pleasant wind, even in the summertime, but the water is absolutely incredible. To bring that water, that Mediterranean water, into Gaza as say, a quarter-mile wide canal, something that could handle boats, maybe not shipping vessels, that would be a pretty deep dredge, but big boats. You could change Gaza into a paradise, and it can be done in not too much time. All you really need right now is a whole bunch of good bulldozers, but some planner come together, put together a water system, a sewer system, an electrical system that got all the energy you need. All the energy you need. There's enough oil and gas in this area, the Golan Heights, to power the Gaza for centuries, dozens of centuries. All it takes is leadership going in the right direction and stopping this whole focus on destroying Israel. Just stop it. Just stop the focus on destroying Israel and build Gaza into a jewel. It can be done. All the resources are there to do it. All the resources. You have to get rid of Hamas because Hamas, all they want is to launch rockets into Israel. But that means that the people who live in Gaza, the people who live in Palestine, have to take control of that area themselves. And they have to say, we're going to stop this. We're going to stop launching rockets over that wall, and we're going to take care of our city, just like Singapore did. And it could be done. No, you really can't disagree with me. I don't care who's responsible. I don't care who started it. I don't care who finished it. I don't care. I'm telling you a way out of it. I'm telling you a way out of it. Now, I'm not a big planner for cities, but I'd be happy to be part of that team because I would like to see that kind of success. And I think Trump could do it, but he has his hands full. This is America Free Radio. I'm Brooks Agnew. I've been your host for the last 2 hours. I know it goes quick, doesn't it? I want you to go out and look for the good in others and help it to grow a little bit every day. And before long, we will have saved the planet. That's how it works. That's how it's done. So this is Brooks Agnew saying, peace, Earth Explorers. Now go and do great things. We have a whole great new year in front of us. Just decide what you want to be, remember who you are, and let's get to it. We'll see you on Sunday night right here on America Free Radio. Peace, Earth Explorers.
Listening to Revolution